Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to Red Hoop Talk. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Shannon O'Loughlin. I'm a citizen of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma and the chief executive of the Association on American Indian Affairs, who's bringing you Red Hoop Talk today. Sitting next to me is one of my favorite elders in all the world, Alvin Windy Boy Sr. Hey, Alvin, how you doing?
Doing real well.
And before we get started today, I think we're going to do things a little bit different because we're coming to you on a different day. Usually we're coming to you on Sunday nights, but today we're coming to you on Friday. And Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, the association does Share Healing or hashtag Share Healing, which is we put a call out to everyone just to take a minute and collect your thoughts and send up good prayers, good thoughts in whatever way is comfortable for you, and send it to those who need it most during this time. We're all still healing and reeling from the pandemic and the fallout from the pandemic, and there are people that still need us and need our thoughts and prayers. And Alvin is so kind. He said he would open us up with a prayer today for our Share Healing. So Alvin, I'm going to turn it over to you so we can get started.
Thank you, Shannon. It's always good to see you. Bear with me. As Shannon mentioned, that last year had certainly been an eye-opener for some of us. In particular with me, my family, I had an older brother. He was 75 last year, and he succumbed to this COVID-19, Charlie tail feathers. And having said that, we in Indian country are large, but not that large. We in Indian country have many relationships intertribally, to not only include the lower 48 in Alaska, but also in Canada. So if you bear with me, I'll say a short prayer. Nochtainan. Kochum noago minanimashom gas kagita sigma. Nospagakamamas and gagismutat and gagisma in Kohtaino in music semanto. Mayo nistanante gexketaman. Magatsapu capas nistana, queskakamans gagisma in kyoyots nocta. Tapo says a miset nana nehogaisino, Gaihatsum Kigai Noski. Kagis Mustamat again again, Xainog. Notsueswag, Kispinotega hat to Axigam Gutsik. Quesni Sandame, Queski, hey music out the mass again. Quest Matso. Question Damon and Quest Pumutan and Kigai Noski. Exanis and get on Nota. High in get one. All my relations. I hope. Thank you, Shannon.
Hey, thank you, Alvin. Thank you. I'm so happy to be sitting here with you today, Alvin. You are one of my favorite elders, and I wanted to share you with everybody the best I could at this time. And so Alvin is from Rocky Boy Res. He's a citizen of the Cree Nation. He is a man of many hats. And one of the most manly men I know, man, he's into agriculture, historic preservation. He was messing around with cows the other day, and you were all over the place today. He has gotten awards. He's been recognized and given a lot of support by the people in his community around him. He's tribal chairman at Chippewa Cree there at Rocky Boy, and Tribal Historic Preservation Officer. Today he is lead at iResponse, which is this great company we're going to talk about that works with industry and tribes to support cultural heritage preservation. Alvin, welcome. Thank you for joining us on Red Hoop Talk. So you may have a better introduction for yourself that you want to share. Please do if you do.
Well, I don't know too much, but I'll do the best that I can. I'll be 70 this year, May 3rd, 1951. And I'm the father of 15 children, of which the 4 youngest from 15 on down to 7 are at home. All my others are out and about, creating their own family. I'm the great-grandfather of 4 children that I adore. I graduated from Box Elder High School in 1969, and I grew up in a place called Parker School, which is kind of the furthest part of the reservation. And our first encounter of the Dominant Society, and I'm going to refer to them as visitors because that's how my elders used to relate to the non-native people as visitors. And it wasn't later on they told me that even we in native country are visitors. And it made me want to think and wonder what they meant by visitors. And when you think about it, when the day is done, we're visitors to this earth, to the big picture that we encounter in our everyday life. And the things that we have, the material things, when we're done in our human form, that we can never take those away from us. We can never take those with us. Mm-hmm. So the only thing that we have to take with us is our mind, our thoughts, and our prayers. And one of my stories I want to relate to what my grandmother and my grandfather's name was Windy Boy. His real name interpreted in Cree is Utenoas, wind child. Then my grandmother, her name is Standing on Cloud. That's on my dad's side. Then on my mother's side, her mother was Gone High, and her dad was first raised. And but being raised with Crees all my life, with Cree way of life, I certainly gained a lot in reference to being with my grandparents. And when we lived in Parker School, we all lived in log houses, no electricity, no heat, no running water. So everything that we did in our everyday life was either by physical labor, hauling water, chopping wood. And I didn't know at the time that was health development, mm-hmm. both mentally and physically. And until later on, 1959, my dad ventured into ranching, and he had a plan that when he gets done, that he was going to turn that over to myself. And I had a younger brother, late John Windy Boy, young John. That was his plan, but he left us in 79. So ultimately, I ended up taking over what he built in 94. And the year that he left me. And I was just sitting here thinking about my dad, I'm 70. I lost him when he was 69, so I beat him by 1 year. But anyway, children likewise. He had 5 girls and 4 boys. Me, I have 10 of my own. But anyway, as time progressed this way, we eventually moved to a north side of a mountain called Haystack, and that's where we resided to the day with our operation. Yeah. Having said that, we thinking about, and thanks for inviting me on, Shannon, because it made me think backing up, not knowing everything that had happened I was a part of. And the thing that I remember was we had no Pampers growing up. It was all diapers. And I wondered why all these white things was in the clothesline flapping. But later on, I got to know it. Unfortunately, we graduated with Pampers, I guess. And as we moved this way, when I was elected to the Tribal Business Committee in 1988, I served there till 2004. And from that, in 2005, I had a cousin, Bruce Sunchild, asked me if I would take the responsibilities of the cultural resource operations of the tribe. I told him I'd do it for a while, and not liking to sit down and be subtle. I did that for a year, and one of the things that as an elected official in those 16, 18 years was the importance of cultural resource management on reservations, whether it's this reservation or any other reservation, and the importance of where we've been as tribes. It goes back to one of the legend stories of this tribe that talk about this land, the pebble in Florida, as opposed to the pebbles in southeastern California, as opposed to the pebbles in Alaska and the Northeast, are all come from the same place. So when old folks would talk about this land, it talks about we as visitors to this land. And being a visitor here, we have to be certainly fully aware of the things around us, whether it's a four-legged, two-legged, those that fly, those that crawl, and also to include the insects, that we have to be in relation to them because they're no further above us or no further below us, and we're all supposed to look at each other equal. To include the plant and the tree life, the air, the water, and the respect that we're supposed to show those, because each of those are identified in many of our ceremonies. I feel here in Rocky Boy very fortunate that we still have a number of our ceremonies still intact. Ghost dance, giveaway dance, sun dance, rain dance, horse dance, all the ceremonies still in place that we are a part of. But the more important thing that I'm noticing and witnessing is the attendance of my people to those certain ceremonies. It has always been said by elders that got this reservation back in 1916 that they always said that's the most important thing to the sustenance and way of life for both the Ojibwe and the Cree people. So as time progressed this way, my grandfather, he was born in 1895. And I asked him one time, where at? He said, all I know was buy a wagon. That's what they told me. And my grandmother, she was born in 1899. And I was fortunate enough to have them with me all this time till they're in their 90s when they left. And prior to that, the Crees were always dominant here in the lower 48, whether they're in Wyoming, the Dakotas, Colorado, Idaho, and Montana. The old man said that there was about 6 or 7 pockets of Crees down here, the Crazy Mountains, Pryor Mountains, Absaroka Mountains, the Muscle Shell in southeastern Montana, and here at the Judith Landing. There were families that that had resided there. My grandmother, her family was on the east side of the Crazy Mountains. And 1974, we were sitting on her porch, and I asked her if she remembers where they were. She said, yeah, I told her I'll take you there. So next day we motored on down to southeast western part of White Sulphur Springs and north of Livingston, and she pointed out where they lived. We drove out there, and she told me where their log houses were, where they camped, where their places, where their corrals are, where their cellars were. But today there's nothing there. But she went through the gesturing where she was at when she was a little girl. It wasn't until about in the 1800s, early 1900s, that the dominant society, the non-Indian visitors, was Montana was dominated by ranchers and farmers in Montana. And at that time, she said that the rancher that lived there, they needed that place, I guess, to graze their cows. So when they left, she said the only place that their Crees and other Indians was in Garrison, Montana. She said that's where we went. And there are Crees and Ojibways in a place called Garrison, Montana. So we joined them. So that's how we ended up with Rocky Boy's band. And Rocky Boy was the newest reservation that was formed in Montana in 1916. But they always had predominantly lived here, resided throughout Montana. And at least the Crees were. Unfortunately, I last of the Ojibways with real Ojibwe knowledge, we just put them away here about 3.5 weeks ago. And quite knowledgeable. Everything that he's told me about Ojibways came from him. Mm-hmm. And so he's been my partner. He was on my board for all these years, and he certainly brought a wealth of Ojibwe knowledge to this tribe. And it's kind of unfortunate he left, but we don't control life, and I'm sure he's in a good place. And I told him that I'll continue the plight that you had mentioned. And he put me on several initiatives for me to follow up on. One is he said is about 1950s, maybe late 40s. So I was a young kid, he said. And he went to school at the agency, and he lived not too far from there. When he was walking by, there was this elder man and this elder lady. She was on the front of her door with her apron over her face. And he walked a little further, and there's the old man was at the woodpile. And he said you can tell they were shedding a tear. So I went to my grandpa and my grandma who raised me, and I told them what these old folks. And he said, yeah. He said the army men came and they told them that their son had died in this World War II, and that they weren't going to bring him home. So, and that always was on this late Duncan's mind. So he asked me to search him out, see if we can find him. So we did, and we found him. He was in a battle of Tripoli. And in fact, the Department of Defense helped us out in locating the actual grave where he's at. Wow. And whether or not we can repatriate him back home, because he should be at home. And that's one initiative I've got. The other one that we've worked on is when you get up in Canada, there was a man by the name of Little Poplar. And Little Poplar was associated with several outbursts of wars up there, fights. And he ended up condemned up there, and he fled to these Crees down here. And his name was Little Poplar. And I had a friend of mine, an archaeologist who was educated at the University of Saskatchewan and Saskatoon. She was doing research on Big Bear, Little Bear, Wandering Spirit, my great-grandfather, Lucky Man, Little Poplar. And when she was researching this 4 years ago, she called me, and I had a meeting in Missoula at the University of Montana. And I told her I've never had an opportunity to research Fort Assiniboine, which is located 20 miles north of us. So she went there, spent several days, and Sunday when I got home, she called me, and she located the skull of Little Poplar. And at that time, it was the United States Army's mission by the higher-ups that when these Indians died near the forts, that they were to take the skulls of men the torsos of women and bodies of infants. It just so happened they located Little Poplar. He died, and it also had a record of when he was near Fort Assiniboine, and we didn't know that there was a bounty on him of $2,000 at that time. Several people from Canada came down and fulfilled that reward. So he was buried there. Then they exhumed the skull, and he sits near Suitland, Maryland, and we're in a process of repatriating him back.
So he's at the National Museum of the American Indian in their curation facilities?
In Suitland, the Smithsonian Archival Center. Right? Yep. And we've always started the repatriation process with those folks back there. Wow. But at times, laws that are created, like the law that just recognizes the tribes in the lower 48 in Alaska, they don't recognize the natives of Canada, even though we're both distinct. We talk the same language, but they're probably not going to give them up until we can come up with the exact family. Little Poplar, we do have some here from him.
Yeah,
we're going to use that mechanism. Little Poplar is going to be a little different because there's a reserve in Saskatchewan named Lucky Man after him. And the chief and council called us several years ago when he's identified that they want to exhume him, take him back. That's going to be a little stickier one.
Wow.
So those are some of the things that we've been doing in that arena.
Yeah.
When we fast forward this way, we're establishing programmatic agreements. We've got one with Indiana. We've got one in North Dakota. And we're finalizing the one with the Montana Department of Transportation. And we're also working on one with Michigan Department of Transportation.
So is this between the tribe and those agencies?
Right, those state agencies. So we've been having Zoom calls monthly with each of those, and we're kind of in the final stages of both the Montana and the Michigan one. The Indiana, we did that 3 or 4 years ago.
How was
Dakota?
So how was Indiana?
Pardon?
How was Indiana to work with?
Oh, they're good. The way our system here is built, that any federally funded project that's going to be creating new disturbance on new ground, they ship their information to our system. We have not only our THPO, but our archaeology department going through that. If it's on new ground, one of two things will happen. We'll take a look using Google Pro Earth to look at the site. And if they're near a tree line or undisturbed area, we needed a little more information. And we're working with, last I counted, about 369 construction projects in that 9-state area. So that seems to work for us.
Yeah.
And where I don't have to send people out, or I don't have to go out, or the THPO doesn't have to go out, but we can do that all here in the office. We also are doing this for the Eastern Shoshone tribe in Wyoming. They've got a lot more projects because they're covering 11 states as their ancestral homeland.
Wow.
Those are one of 2 projects, and we're doing others. This building that you see here that I'm in, we built it, iResponse and the THPO. And there's no federal monies or tribal monies in this building. We got to the point now we own our own ground penetrating radar, as well as a drone that goes with it. And we've also been involved with acquiring for the tribe portions of the Sweetgrass Hills, which is 80 miles from Rocky Boy. And there's a long storied history of the Sweetgrass Hills as its relevancy to both the Crees, and actually there were only 3 of us in the last 10 years that used that mountain. Now they're just two of us. The old guy, Duncan Steinerock, left us. But we hope that the inquisitiveness of young people would belly up to the table and understand and learn a lot of this, because it's not coming from me or anybody else. It comes from a storied past of our ancestors long time ago, and we have to maintain that.
Yeah.
And I often wondered, and I asked my grandfather and my grandmother, that in the future, I wonder what it's going to look like for us. My grandpa looked at me and he said, "It's going to be tough, grandson." "How so?" He said, "Well, and he said this in Cree, he said, there's going to be not very many of you to talk Cree, to talk Creator's language. And the ceremonies that we have is going to disappear. Don't let them," he said. "Make sure they're going on, particularly as it relates to relationship with each other." And over the years, I got to learn from them their reference to their hand. We all have, well, most all of us have 5 fingers on each side, and their story always referenced them. And it's up to us as Cree people, Ojibwe people, or Native, no matter who we are, to not only understand ourselves, but understand the surroundings that is by us in our everyday life. The laws that we are having to adhere to in the dominant society isn't our laws, but we're mandated to adhere to them. Years ago, we didn't have a law and order code. We didn't have a land use code. We didn't have policies and procedures. What we had was right here in our hands as reference. Because there are 4 laws, according to the old man and the old lady, was that we're supposed to adhere to. The very ultimate law that we should know about and understand is what we call Creator's law. And there are many principles within that Creator's law that we should know. The second, in this order, second law that we're supposed to pay attention to is what we call natural law. Natural law dealing with the water, the sky, the plants, the 4-legged, 2-legged, those that fly, and insects, that we're supposed to respect them because they were here before us. And there are many principles even with them to understand as humans. And the third law that we're supposed to understand is ceremony law. Ceremony law deals with the procedures, the protocols of us as Native people to understand the ceremony, to be a part of those ceremonies, to understand them, to walk the talk. And at the same time, there's certain principles within those ceremonies we as humans are supposed to adhere to. I was witness to that when I was in the 10th grade back in 1967. After school, I went to school in Box Elder. I came home. My father was home from work early, and I wondered why he was home. And he turned to me and said, "Come with me." I said, "Where are we going?" He said, "Just never mind, just come." So I got in his truck, we went. But I noticed it wasn't a usual ride, because in the middle was some blankets, some tobacco, some print, and some other offerings. So I knew it was going to be that kind of trip. So we went around south, slow paced. There was an old man at that time, and used to keep that painted drum. And my father was a cane holder to that ceremonial drum. So I went with him. I went in to the old man's log house, and he told him that I want to use that cane that I'm responsible for. So he had to tell him what he was going to ask his dad something about that. So he had his boy go out and get that particular cane, and he put it on my lap, and I didn't say anything all the way back over to my grandfather's little house, him and my grandmother. So we got off, and he went in, and he got down on one knee and he told his dad, my grandpa, he said, I want to ask you something, he said. Then my grandpa, he sat up, he said, if I know it. And he said, some people want me to run for tribal business committee, but I have this, and I'm here to seek your advice. So my grandpa looked at him and he just said, that's easy. You take one or the other. You can't have them both. They don't work together. And that was the answer. So he took those, went all the way back. I didn't say anything until we took him back on the way home. I said, Dad, after all that, and that's the answer he gave you? He said, yeah, I knew it. He said, son, you'll find in your life, you never do things by yourself. You always certify what you're going to do. He said, and what I did, I knew the answer, but I wanted to make sure, son. So after saying all that, I was always a little more astute to the happenings around me. And as we progress this way, in 1994, to be specific, April 24th, 1994, my cousin, the late John Sunchild, and I were a part of a working group, a consultation working group prior to that, putting together a document that we could take to the president. And we did. 500, at the time, 562 federally recognized tribes assembled on a South White House lawn. And the dialogue that he signed, then President Clinton signed, was a consultation policy. And all those cabinet members was on the side. And he turned to them and said, this document is the presiding document that's going to be used for all tribes in this country. Unfortunately, after that, to this day, I have not seen that reality ever take place. And I didn't know this until my dad left. And as we're one of several tribes initially that compacted both the BI and IHS services. The first wave we wanted to be a part of in 1989. That didn't happen, and rightly so. So the second wave came. I and a couple of councilmen attended a meeting back in DC, and we felt that we were ready. And but we had to bring that initiative back home. We did. We hemmed. We hawed until it passed. So we were taking cue from the Salish Kootenai tribe over on the west side of the mountains. If they can do it, why couldn't Rocky Boy? So then we signed both the compact, which was relevant to both the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Indian Health Service. We didn't do it for employment services. What we did it for was services to the people, where there's roads, where there's forestry, where there's healthcare, where there's diabetes. That was primary to us. And we knew we had a number of tribal members that were out there. And taking cue from my late friend, the late Marge Anderson of Mille Lacs, when my cousin and I visited her operations, she told us one thing that always stuck in my mind. He said, the facilities that you see here, they're nice, but always understand, if you're going to do something right, my friends, he said, sometimes those initiatives may not be your people's. So you got to think outside, and they pointed to me. You always say, think outside the
All right. Either Alvin or I am stuck right now.
teepee.
There he is.
People would desire. So that was we embarked on that initiative, and we're one of two tribes in Montana in the Rocky Mountain region that are compacted.
Yeah.
So we weren't going to stop there. When I got off in 2004, we were creating a Title 7 or Title 4 amendments to 638 self-governance that would look at beyond those abilities of this tribe and Salish Kootenai and other self-governance tribes to look at other functions within the greater Bureau government-wide infrastructures, whether it's HHS, Department of Transportation, USDA, because us as tribes do all those anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's make sure everyone understands what you're talking about. So you were talking about your work in the Clinton administration for Rocky Boy. That was Executive Order 13735, the Tribal Consultation Executive Order, which required all those federal agencies, they were supposed to come up with their own policy of how they would consult with each and every tribe, right?
Right.
And yeah, you're right. To this day, agencies have sucked at it. I think the Obama administration got the closest because he was having those regular meetings with tribes, right? But most of the agencies have sucked. And then you were talking about 638 contracts, right? So what 638 contracts are is generally services provided to tribal governments are provided through the feds, right? So Indian Health Service, the feds run unless a tribe does it through 638 compacting, right?
Right.
And then they basically take the money and they spend it how they want to spend it. Otherwise, the feds are doing everything however the feds do, which is never very good, right?
Right.
Yeah.
What really started that off here in Rocky Boy was when my father was the chairman, and he was the chairman of the tribe for about 22 years. And I came home one day, and my youngest brother said, my dad just got home from DC, and he said, "Well, Daddy, did you bring lots of money from us from back there?" My dad just smiled. He said, "No, it don't work that way." It's kind of funny that you say that, son. He said, but here I was, Tribal Business Committee. We had about 13 requests: housing, forestry, healthcare. The list went on, and they're all important. But there was a document that didn't put one over the other. They were all equal in this document. My responsibility was to go back there to the Appropriations Committee under then Congressman Sid Yates. So there I was. I got there. He said, I was way over here. There's about over 100 tribal chairmen standing in line, just like me, with this document, with their own document. So when we got there, the lady escorted us in one by one. Then when I got my turn, they said, Mr. Windy Boy said, "I'm sure you got a lot of requests, but can you talk about the three most important issues?" And then there I was. And we had no access to phones, and I couldn't call back. So I said, so I told him, "What'd you do?" I did what I had to do. So I went in. There I was, Congressman Sid Yates up on. There I was. And then he told me, he said, "What's the most important within your document that you have, Mr. Windy Boy?" So there I was, baffled again. They're all important. Mm-hmm. So as a result of that, they ushered me out another way. There I was, and I felt like Santa Claus. I was a kid going to see Santa Claus. We take our kids there, our kids got all kinds of requests. And by the time you get to the elf there, they say you just pick certain ones. And when you go sit on Santa's lap, what's the most important one? He said, that's what I felt like. So as a result of that, him and his friends, Roger Jourdain, Wendell Chino, Buffalo Tiger, and he's named all these people, chairman, and they said, we can't do this every year. So as a result of that, the next day, they had a session with President Jimmy Carter on the South White House lawn. So that kind of enhanced the 638 process. So the rest is history.
Wow. Well, let's go back in history a little bit, Alvin, if you don't mind. If I can, I'd really like to know what it was like growing up. I'm assuming you grew up out there in Montana, and what it was like for you, because basically you've been through. If you were born in '51, man, that was termination, relocation, up into self-determination. So, you and your family. Probably went through some things. What was it like to go through that, and how did you wind up in freaking tribal politics?
I don't know, just by happenstance.
Yeah.
Me being a politician, I powwowed a lot all throughout country, and I certainly have a lot of extended family in the Navajo, Yakima, Red Lake, Seminoles. I knew quite a few people. But why politics?
Yeah.
Well, it's just one of those things that you stumble across, and you see people going without, and I guess that's what drove me to run for tribal government. And I certainly seen a lot of things happen, and a lot of things change, hopefully for the positive. And speaking of relocation days,
Yeah.
we used to have one house log houses where we were raised back there in Parker area. And one day there was I and three of my cousins, because we had big families and we always farmed us out to our grandparents. So we're staying with my grandparents, and all of a sudden my one cousin got up to go use the restroom outside, and daybreak he came back. He whispered, "Hey, there's a new car outside." So we jumped up in that neck of the woods. The car was the last thing that we would see, because in order for someone to go to town, my late aunt used to have requests to go to have her, and she'd have this checklist: cigarettes for this guy, axe for this guy, things like that. So we went outside, seen this new car. Oh, who's the boy? Went in. We told Grandpa and Grandma, "Hey, a new car. Whose is that?" And we saw my uncle over there. He sat up. "Oh, that's mine," he said. "Me and my companion." And they come from North Dakota, and that's where they were, what they call relocation. We're on our way to relocation, Los Angeles. They got us a job, me and my missus. So they went. They packed up, and they looked like Beverly Hillbillies, huh? So they packed down, and I think it was a '47 Dodge. Here they left. Oh, those old ladies there crying. Pretty soon my grandpa was sitting outside, and he looked at, I went and sat with them, and he says, "Condan." I said, "No, they're just doing it. They'll be back." I said, "What? Really?" I said, "Watch." He said, "Sure enough, huh?" Geez, about a month later, him and his wife was in the house again. Well, we was curious. We asked him, "What happened? Relocation?" "Oh, it was tough," he said. "We got down there, and they put me polishing these propellers every day, 8 hours a day. That's all I did was polish." And Mrs. here, she got her job at changing linen at a hotel. And the only time we get to see each other is the evening time. Too tired to do anything. Get up. Just like robots. What my dad used to say, lifestyle, you got to get used, because we're going to be like robots, he said. Then one day he said we were going to town, and all of a sudden I heard a big bang on the interstate. There I must have blew my engine. There I was, my new car pulled on the side. "Well, where is it?" My cousin told him. "Oh, I don't know, it's probably there somewhere." So then we came home. "Now what you gonna do?" My other cousin told him, "We're gonna go to relocation. They'll get us another car. We'll go back." But they never did, huh? They ended up going back to North Dakota. So that's the only relocation story that I ever had.
Well, that's a good story, because they came back.
And my mother and my father, my one brother wanted to go to a boarding school, because all my other cousins were going to boarding school. My dad said, nope, I'm not letting anybody raise my kids. You're my responsibility, and it's my job to provide for you, to show you in life what your abilities and what you're supposed to be doing as a man. So, so anyway, that's with me here in Rocky Boy. My grandfather in the area that his family, he was the youngest of 25 kids, and how he began. He was raised here, born here in Montana, and but his dad came from up north. And I don't know if you ever heard the singing group, Northern Cree.
Oh, yeah.
They're all my cousins and nephews, guys, because the Woods, the McGilverys, the McCocus, the Halfs, the Whiskey Jacks, there were and Cardinals. They were all his half brothers and sisters. And then there was a storied history of how he left from there down to here. And he was wanted up there. And the RCMP hired a guy by name of, I forgot the guy's name, but they hired him to track him down. So he left from the Saddle Lake, Coal Lake area, and he went down to what they call the Bear Hills, which later become Muskogee or Hobbema area. And what I'm telling is a story that he told us as young folks. Then he got there, and then he took up with a woman, and they had several kids, and that's where the Roans, the Buffaloes, they came from. And then from there, they heard that he was there, so he went there, this guy. Then he left, and he went down to, stayed with the Stonies west of Morley, and stayed there several years. And they had one kid. And then they heard that he was there. He went down and he left. And he went over to the Blackfoot area. And he took up with a woman there, and he had two kids. And one kid was sitting Eagle, and he went south to the Bloods just across the border. Took up with a woman there, had a child there. By then, these Crees and Chippewas were in Browning. That's when he came across and took up with my grandfather's mother. There he had 6 kids then. And he was the only one left. His sisters left before him. And 1974, I used to record my grandfather a lot of the storied history, and I have about, I think, 11 cassettes that I had recordings of him. And I asked him one day, I said, Grandpa, did you ever go back up north? Oh, yeah, he said. Oh, I was young, about 1906, 1907, 19, around there, he said. My dad and I, we took off. I know it took us 4 times to sleep to get where we were going. So one day, he said, we got there. When we got there, he's telling me about all this area over here. This over here where we fought, Frenchman's Butte, he said, my ancestors, and other sites in that area. And then he said, look down there, son, he told my grandpa. He said, you see all those kids? Yeah, he said, those are your brothers and sisters. Oh, I looked there, and so when he got up, he hollered. Oh, in Cree, he hollered, oh, my kids, I'm home. they stopped. The oldest one looked up and he hollered, "No, father!" And they all went running up. And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, I got there." And he said, "You know the thing I knew about my dad?" He said, "He knew every one of them by name."
So
they looked around. They looked around, and he said, "Oh, right here," meaning my grandfather. So they went down to it. There's 2 log houses there. They went there, and there were 3 women there. One was tanning a buckskin hide at the corner of the log house. He went in. As soon as she seen him, she went in. He got inside. He said, "I'm home." And I was curious about what was their reaction. I told him. They just looked at me and I said, "Inch." So they started doing. One was beating moccasins. The other was cooking. The other one was stretching that hide. So he said we stayed there maybe about a month or so. So then he said we told them that we're gonna go home now because I got kids down here, meaning my grandpa's sisters. So they left. But he said one thing before he left. He said told them, and to include me. He said, "You kids, you always understand your relationship with me and your moms because you are one of the same." So from that day on, when I used to go powwowing around, my grandma and grandpa would say, "Where are you going?" So, "We're going to go to Canada." "Where at?" I said. We tell them where at. Then we'd sit down and they'd tell us who all were related, making sure we don't practicing our snagging ways, but we didn't. So anyway, and what you see there's the bottom picture is my grandfather on the left and my grandmother on the right. And they've been my mentors all my life. And they always tell me, "We know nothing. We're just simple human beings living. And we appreciate our kids that we brought into the world. And we also appreciate all the grandkids and great grandkids because they live to see great grandkids, these old folks. And they had 22 boys and 2 girls, them two.
wow.
And unfortunately, they're all gone. And after thinking about what they were talking about, there's going to become a time, they said, it might even be synonymous with other Indian country, is that the people of knowledge are going home, and we're going to have a lot of wayward children, grandchildren. That's why they always expressed to learn, to keep learning, to be respectful. When I talk about those 4 laws, creator's law, natural law, ceremony law, and the last one, human law, and they always use those. In life, you have to understand all those laws and the laws that follow within each other. The 5th one over here, this one, why it's far away, is the law that leads up those 4 to this one. And that's the law that we've completed our life. And there's certain laws within even that. And I'm just expressing what they told us. So, and after saying all that, as we fast forward this way, in my life, there's been a lot of people that certainly did a lot, not only for me, but I also think that I didn't do it for them, but I did it for the native people in Indian country. And other tribal leaders that I shared the table with that have since gone on, Joe Delacruz, Marge Anderson, and Mickey Pablo, and I can go on and on. But there are a number of tribal leaders after an IHS meeting, we asked each other, we can't be doing this hand-to-mouth of healthcare delivery system. So I asked then Dr. Trujillo, if you was to put on the table, on the wall, every healthcare initiative that you're responsible for, whether it's diabetes, whether it's heart, the list goes on, what would be your anticipation in the future as to what our people are going to be faced with? After much discussion, it was determined that diabetes was one that's going to potentially be the disease that's going to affect all of us. So as a result of that, we created the TLDC, meaning Tribal Leaders Diabetes Council. And I chaired that for 9 years. And there are a number of people even within that Tribal Leaders Diabetes Council that assisted us. A good tribal leader will always initiate possibilities, but the possibilities are the people that are behind him, the technicians, the technical people, to put everything down.
Oh, this one's a little longer than I expected. His computer is freezing.
So as a result of that, we had a congressional mandate by Congress that had ultimately funded that annually, and that's one of the initiatives that I'm certainly proud of, even to the day. And there's a number of people within that are no longer there. Dr. Kermit Smith, Dr. Michael Trujillo, Gail Marshall, and Dale Risling, California, Henry Kagi in Washington, guys in Oklahoma, Governor Anatoby, Merle Boyd, a lot of those that because of what they've done, we're still realizing the benefits of that today. And that was only the start. And what we should have kept going on is each specific health disparity that Indian country is faced with. Fortunately for us, the last 4 years hadn't been too good, but we in Indian country are survivors. Mm-hmm. Whether we're here in America or up in Canada, we're survivors. You know, our people had encountered smallpox, literally, intentionally, Spanish flu, and now this one.
Yeah.
And many of us are still surviving. Yeah. We have to depend. And my dad, the best words that I ever heard from my dad was, you know, son, the breechcloth days are something that was done before. If you was to put yourself in those people that wore those breechcloths, they would always stand guard to protect us later on. And all we're doing is fulfilling the benefits they created for us today. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. Many people don't like the reservation life, but when you think about it, that's my best last place here in Rocky Boy. It's not very big, 125,000 acres, but it's a place that I call home. Unfortunately, the old man, Rocky Boy, didn't get to see the land that was named after him. Hmm. After reading many of his documentations with Frank Bird Linderman, I could see what he was envisioning. And even my grandfather said that was one of the most kindest men he's ever encountered. And to this date, you know, I believe what my grandfather said. And the latest Ojibwe elder we laid to rest not very long ago. There's some obligations that I'm going to take up for him, for his vision. And one of them was the Sweetgrass Hills that we acquired with the tribe. And that just happened by happenstance. Back in the 70s, the Lehman brothers, who owned Manhattan Minerals, was going to open pit mine that area, the sacredness of the tallest mountain. And my elders at that time, they objected, vehemently objected to what they were proposing. When you fast forward this way, 2 years ago, I had a lady from Minneapolis call me, Betty Lehman. So we conversed a couple of times. I told her, I want to get to the chase here, Betty. Said, since you're the owners of that now, you inherited it, would you guys be willing to sell? Blew my socks off. She said, yes, we will. We would. So she gave us an offer. I took the offer, and I didn't know where this broke butt Cree would get that kind of money. But I went back to the tribe, and we fulfilled that. So now we're owners of that mountain. And one of my archaeologists did the assessment last year. We've got a report that will be made to the public. And so we've got a lot of work cut out for us to do in that area. I'm going to be going up there with my archaeologists and my field technicians, and we're going to map out not only the sacred part, but also the history, the storied history that my elders told us about that area. And it's a long, a good story. So those hills, it's kind of the oasis in the prairie. And much game. They tell me there's some grizzlies up there now, but we'll deal with them when that time comes.
That's beautiful. Hey, you've got a few people asking some questions. Let's see. We've got Judy. Judy Gobert is asking, who's working on food sovereignty? My son has an initiative he's working on with Montana tribes. I want to see trading begin again. So are you working on any food sovereignty issues? I know you've had a lot of agricultural work. You've worked a lot with USDA, right?
Yeah, I chaired the Montana Wyoming Intertribal or Montana Wyoming Indian Stock Growers Association. It was made up of all the ranchers, and there was 8 reservations in Montana and Wyoming. Our goal was to capture the Indian beef and market. We brought on a buyer that worked for Montfort Beef, Rick Lacey down in Drummond, Montana, who did a lot of groundwork for us. The idea was well put together. In fact, I still got the what we call the American Indian Beef Products portfolio that identified everything from pasture to plate in reference to Indian beef. Our goal at the time was, say, Cedars in Mashantucket, Pequot, their restaurant.
Yeah.
If you order a steak, there would have been a little flag where this beef come from, whether Wyoming or Montana, and who was a producer of that beef. And distributor to the restaurant, a source verification process. That was our goal. In reference to food sovereignty, I haven't been involved with that. I've my main initiative is cultural resource management, and there's a number of initiatives that we're working on that's on the back plate. And so, yeah, as far as food sovereignty, I heard of it. I kind of understand it. And I'm always one to be learning, even as old as I am. If it's an initiative that has some viability, I'll take it on. So, yeah. Judy.
Hey, I'm bringing up your website for iResponse, and I'm going to put it in the chat so everyone can get a hold of it and check out your company iResponse. Can you talk a little bit about what you all do there? Uh-oh, you're frozen again.
In 2005, I came and I was getting bombarded by the Tower Construction Notification System of FCC, and there was no humanly possible way for me to go through each of those documents. So I employed the services of a professor at a college to come up with a system that would look at each of those projects and put them in some type of IT, because I'm the last guy that knows anything about computers. My staff had bought me a phone. All I wanted was a flip up top with a old kind. That's all I needed. But anyway, as a result of that, we have a company that works with us in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Redline Media, and the CEO of that is Sally Tommy, a very respectable lady that I look up to, even though I'm older than her. But her initiative that was able to help me in taking this to the next level. And those are just some of my staff that I had, and we've got some new faces. But the system is industry, and as I mentioned, there's about 369 companies in the industry field that does a lot of this work through FCC. The system is built to where when industry submits their projects through FCC website, they automatically come to iResponse. And our staff have the ability within 2 days to go through everything that comes through us. They make a determination whether it's an archaeological initiative or a tribal historic preservation initiative. They go through that, and there is a small fee to industry for us to do that, because naturally things aren't free anymore. So it takes me an amount to get these reports out, to get the adverse effect or non-adverse effect letters out.
Mm-hmm. So is this just for Rocky Boy? Are you working with other tribes as well?
I'm working with Eastern Shoshone, and I'm going out to Henry Kage's tribe, Lummi, and I'm going east of us here to Fort Belknap. And I did several presentations to Southern California tribes, as well as the Omaha tribe in Nebraska that I visited. So.
And y'all are doing field work as well, right? So you're not just in the digital part, which I don't completely understand, but y'all are doing field work too, right?
Right. Actually, we have a staff of what we're calling tribal field technicians that we train. If there's ground disturbance activity with a TCNS site, knowing that there's a huge tower going up, it's been pretty customary with industry that they'll go down 8 feet. And being nosy Cree Indians that we are, I'd rather know what they're going to be digging up. So the 2 days that we send our 2 or 3 days that we send our field technicians, they're observing what they're digging up. At the same time, they're also looking at the circumference of the project. Are there any medicinal plants of value? Is there any sites within that area that potentially may have an adverse effect? Those are parts of the report that naturally industry will get shortly after.
Have you ever been able to work to stop or move
Yes.
a site?
Yes, we have actually, and I'll cite several of them. One was Verizon in north central Montana. A company flew up Denver to Malta, Montana. We met them out there. We went out about 18 miles south of a town called Saco. We went and looked at a site, and the rancher was going to lease that particular land to Verizon. After I and my old guys went walking around, it was a burial of years ago, and there was also a fasting site within that. So we notified the person with the company, and as a result of that, they rejected that site. But we told them there's another site, probably about a half mile potentially. So we went to that site, and that's where that cell tower is at today.
Wow.
So those are several sites that we had positively assisted. We're not about stopping projects. We're about working with industry. And one that I'm kind of proud of, because this Ojibwe tribe here, Anishinaabe tribe, originated from the Poconos Mountains area of eastern Pennsylvania. And there's a storied history based on this, my elder here. We went out and visited that area, and the northeastern elders called on us one day, and there was a request by a non-Indian visitor, I guess. She inherited her grandparents' land that was in their family for a number of years, and the state of Pennsylvania, the Historic Preservation Office, SHPO's office, was proposing that they eminent domain portions of her property to get this gas line through, and she didn't want that. And so the elders of the northeastern area called us, asked if we had any information. It's kind of tough for us to Google map looking at the earth without being present. So we went out. Archaeologists and the elders went out, and we looked at the site. And what we found was remnants of one of the legend stories of our tribes. Actually, seeing it in face, person to person. And after looking at, I called several of my elders and that have never been back there. They know the story, they know the history, and they couldn't believe that we seen the place. So they asked us to take photos of it. We did, and everything that we had taken photos of, there was a history behind each of those. So Army Corps was there with us, as well as a number of other people. But we told them that, back home, we worked with the fiber optics line company within Rocky Boys, and they were trying to go across fields on that. But they ultimately worked with us. At our suggestion is to keep the fiber optics line along the right of way. And fiber optics line here in Rocky Boy is complete. And we told that's what they should do with the gas line. When I went out there a year and a half ago to check on the project, that's exactly what the gas line did, was follow the right of way. Did the same thing, and the lady was very, very appreciative of that. And we're gonna journey out there again. We're gonna proposing to the tribe to take about 6 students to go out, and she's willing to work with us with this Forest Service, because a lot of that land is under forestry. But to also have these kids understand a legend story depicting years ago and what it looks like today. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the studies that the SHPO's off in Pennsylvania had done was radiocarbon dating. The radiocarbon dating, they were telling me that those sites supersede even that of 1492. Well, and we knew that.
Yeah.
So that's and there's many sites along the way, and that's why FCC recognized those 9 states as ancestral homeland to this tribe.
Wow.
And I have aspirations. Likewise, I I met a guy one time back there by the name of John Kerry in my travels, and I see he's the international NEPA EPA person. I heard him talk here less than a year ago. And one of the things he was saying was the water wars of the West is coming to a sunset. Now the water wars that this country is going to be facing is moving eastward. Mm-hmm. And I had a question mark on my head. Hey, if that's ancestral homeland to this tribe, then that potentially could tell me that I got a dog in that fight, or this tribe has a dog in that fight. But I haven't met an elected official to even sit down and listen to me. Because there's other things that I have, aspirations that I have. Taking a J Treaty and putting some meaning behind it that's going to benefit not only this Cree tribe, but Cree tribes up north. The 28 tribes that border this imaginary line, we all have a dog in that fight. Long before the visitors came in 1492. There's no reason why we as tribes have to wait until COVID-19 lets us. As we have medicinal plants that we value that help us. And we're all convinced, we become convinced that we have to take these vaccinations, and that's an individual choice, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell us what the J Treaty is a little bit, just so people know what the J Treaty is in case they don't?
J Treaty is a document that was signed by the Queen of England that allows free trade, free access to the tribes that border this, and Crees are a part of that.
Yeah.
Freely access, freely trade. And one of the things that we were trying to do with American Indian beef products was to have our beef go through Canada to the Orient or wherever. Because we do the same thing with horses. They have horse sales in Billings. The only slaughter plant for horses sits in Fort Macleod, Alberta, and those animals cross freely. Why couldn't we do that with Indian cattle? Because it's determined in the studies that we have, 99% of Indian cattle are not implanted with this growth hormone. And we know what these growth hormones do to cattle. That's that it's set on an Indian table.
Yeehaw. So you've got some pictures here, and I'd love for you to talk about some of these pictures of some landscapes here. Should I go ahead and bring them up?
Sure.
All right, let's see what this is.
There were 4 prominent non-Indian people that took a liking to this Rocky Boy or Stone Town. It started in what we were reading about 1906. A guy by the name of Frank Bird Linderman, the artist Charlie Russell, a prominent business person in Great Falls, Paris Gibson. They assisted attempting to try to find land for Rocky Boy. Now, when these people were coming from the east, they had the opportunity, and documentation indicates that there was 3.2 million acres. That's a big chunk of land that was offered to Rocky Boy from the western side of Fort Mountains. So that went by the
Alvin?
wayside, and they end up in Garrison. There was an initiative by those 4 gentlemen to help this elder, and we have the minutes or the notes to those meetings that he had. And the great wise wisdom of the government, they decided to round up all these Crees and Chippewas first place they put them on was an existing reservation on Salish Kootenai in Flathead. They lived there for a while, but again, two different lifestyles, different languages, different ceremonies. So they left and went back to Garrison. The second time they were rounded up, they took them to Crow Indian Reservation. They spent several years there. And same thing. So they left back to Garrison. This time, the third time, they took them to the Blackfeet in Browning, Montana. And from then, those gentlemen, this tribe was having their annual Sundance. And the chief of the Blackfeet at that time was Mountain Chief. They went over to him, asked him where Rocky Boy was. So Mountain Chief indicated they're over there during their annual ceremony. So Charlie Russell spent that 4 days with those people. And toward the end, they told him that they think they have some land for Rocky Boy, 55,000 acres for the Assiniboine. So then that was the start of their first reservation here in Rocky Boy, 55,000 acres. I asked my grandpa one time, well, 1906, 1907, 1908, you was a young man, huh? Yeah, I was probably about 8, 9, 10 years old, he said. So you lived in Browning. Is there anything that you can tell me that highlighted? He said, yeah, grandson, he said, one time, and he's telling me in Cree because he didn't speak English. He said, one time, we're going to Cutbank on a bus, and we were all told to go to Fort Assiniboine. So me and him got on that bus, old bus, and we got to Cutbank Creek going up that hill. The town of Cutbank was up on top. Pretty soon he said that bus started chugging. All of a sudden it quit. There it was 20 below outside. That driver said, there's a cafe up here. You guys go there and wait for me. I'm going to get someone to get us going again. So we all hiked up there. It must have been about 15 of us on that bus, Indian and non-Indian. So we got to that restaurant early in the morning, about 7 o'clock, still dark out. So we got there and they seated us. And my dad said, hey, Nyagashi Munche, do you speak English? Ma said, no, I don't speak English. Tane, how come? He said, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Well, order something. But I don't know what to order in English, he said. Just then that waitress come over. She had her pencil and her paper. And then she said, she must have said, may I help you? So my dad, he looked at me. I looked at him. And he told me in Cree, how do you say eggs? I had to tell the truth. I didn't know how. So he looked at that waitress, faced her, and he said, pointed to himself, me. I want. Then he leaned sideways. He went, I want that. He said. And she understood. Oh, you want eggs? So she wrote eggs down. Then what else? He said. Then he looked at me, and I didn't know what he wanted. Kugus, a pig, I guess, pork. So he turned to her, same thing again, and he put his finger, his nose up, and made a sound of a pig. Oh, you want bacon? So that's the first time that he ever encountered English that way to a non-Indian. So they went. And when they got to Fort Assiniboine, he said they were told this land may become available. And what you see here is Rocky Boy, as I mentioned, didn't really see this land that those elders named after him. If you can back up that picture one, I want to talk a little about a site right there. This tall mountain right to the right there, if you were to bring it in, and what kind of animal would you see? See where that red line is?
Yeah, is that a turtle?
It's a turtle. And the thing right behind him, that's a baby turtle.
Baby turtle.
And there's a story behind that turtle. That turtle is a reminder to our people here where they come from, back east. And there's another part of that story with that little turtle dealing with family. And this is a long, long story, but that's near the agency. And a lot of my people never heard of this before, but I'm just repeating what my old folks said. And if there's another picture that's to the right of that, that's, I don't know if she put it on there. No. That's the same one. But anyway, there's a face of an elder there, and that face is what they call our grandfather Rock, because he plays a major role in a lot of our ceremonies with the pipe. This particular mountain here is called Centennial. And if you was to move your, right, I don't know if is my arrow on there?
No, can't see yours.
Okay. Right at the top is a radio cell tower, not a cell tower, radio tower up on top.
Right up here.
If you went straight down, and if you bring that picture in closer, there's for some reason, old folks said that about 2 weeks a year, this water comes gushing out for 2 weeks, and then it recedes back in. We have never gone up there because it's pretty rough up there. But that there is what we call a bear. If you notice a rump in the back,
yeah,
and the bear's right ear facing south. Now there's another mountain that's very synonymous here in Rocky Boy that we hold sacred. The dominant society calls that Baldy. And many of my people refer to it as Baldy, that one right there. Now, that mountain plays a significant role to the traditional native people in their belief. When I was a young kid, about 11, 12 years old, we used to camp on the north side, and there was many families that used to go up and camp in the summertime. And a lot of our elders, when they walked with us around that mountain, they showed us many sites within that area. But there's one site that I'll talk about here, and that's when you go to your left of that mountain, down, right, straight down, right about there. A lot of people can't get up there, but that is a natural chair made of rock, just like two arms here and a back. A lot of people can't go up there, but that's what Creator, according to old timers, was for those kind of people, whether it's mental, physical, incapacitated. That's for them. Many old folks said that many prominent other Native people use that area. People like Chief Joseph, people like Sitting Bull, Gall, and the list goes on. Use that area. And that lake there, that body of water, we at Cultural Resource Preservation Department played a significant role in getting that lake expanded. There are all my elders that of knowledge are all gone now, and what they suggested, what they wanted us to do is below this dam, the original dam, was kind of a archaeological treasure, as my archaeologists say. There's a whole host of material underneath. And this one old guy said, why are we doing it here? Why don't, if they're going to inundate that water up on that dam, why don't we do that dig there? So it was all determined. The tribal business committee took that on and said, yeah, go ahead and do it. So we spent 2 years, because the water was going to inundate that, we did an archaeological dig. And we found a number of tools, number of items, things that was an eye-opener to me, but that that was about those tools, and it was tools that was used. The oldest dated tool there was about 12,000 years ago. And that tool that they radiocarbon dated, the University of California, Davis did for us, it also told us what animal that was used on, as well as those boiling rocks, what types of plants was used, what types of soups was made. So and we have all those in our museum cabinets here. And that sometime I wanna, and we're in the process of creating an archival center. And the reason why we say an archival center is old folks that have gone on, they said, don't use a museum. This other old guy said, how come? Because when you talk about museum, it's something like we used to do, huh? We used to do. But when you look at us, we're still practicing who we are. So I suggest, well, how about an archival? Because since we're repatriating a lot of things back to Rocky Boy, we need to have an archival center that's going to store things. I've got, I think, about 4 or 5 universities to include Peabody, that we have a number of items that they're keeping for us until we get this facility built.
Wow. So I wanted to ask you a question. I'm kind of changing the subject here, Alvin, and I know we've been on for a while, so I don't want to keep you on too late. And where are you out for your Friday night antics? No telling what kind of trouble you're going to get into on a Friday night.
The only trouble I'm going to have is loading up 2 round bales feed cows.
Well, that's about what I was thinking about. How do you think we're doing? How do you think us young people are doing? Or, well, not us young people, but people younger than me. How do you think they're doing with the teachings and the things that you and your parents and grandparents taught you? How do you think they're doing with all that?
And I can only reflect locally here.
Yeah.
I'm concerned. Really, I am concerned. Not only with the language, but also with the ceremony. And we had a ghost dance here last fall, and there was only 11 of us there. And when you're dealing with a reservation of about 7,000-8,000 people, that lodge should have been filled up, because it's the people's ceremony. It's our Creator's ceremony that He told us to use. Likewise, giveaway dance, and realizing that COVID-19 limited a lot of that we hope to be back in full swing with those. And the company that with iResponse have been a contributor to a lot of those ceremonies. We get sweetgrass for the ceremonies. We provide the material at the annual rain dance ceremonies that is held, and we're there helping out, not for us, but for our people, particularly our young people. Because what's really concerning to me, that in reference to your question, and this might be synonymous within Indian country, and that is the drugs that we encounter here. And elders that left us, they always wanted, we need to get rid of them. We need to get rid of those people that sell. Because when you think about it, they're killers, they say. They're killing our people. And when you have 40, 50-year-old people that are addicted to that, I used to always see war on drugs, war on posters all over. When you think about it, I think we lost the war on the drugs won, whether that's here in Rocky Boy or nationwide. If we're really going to be serious about us, tribal leaders have to take a staunch stand, because the future of us, the future of me, my kids, all 15 of my kids and grandkids are potentially could succumb to that. let alone the diseases. The diseases of cancer, diabetes, I think we can handle that. But it's this synthetics type of stuff, alcoholism.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the concerning part that I have.
And what's so imperative about it all, it's those traditions, it's those stories, it's those ceremonies that can bring healing and recovery to those addictions, right? So
Right.
how do you get those kids to ceremony?
Well, I tell my young folk, my grandkids and my kids, this is a tool. Whether we like it or not, it's a tool of modern discussion by Indian country. I can converse with my cousins up in Saddle Lake. I can converse with my cousins Onion Lake. I can converse with my relatives in Frog Lake, Hobima, Small Boy Camp, all those tribes up there, just by a second.
Yeah.
And they can give me updates of what's going on. That's technology as we know it today. The technology, if I was to ask you, blow me a smoke signal, see if I can understand it. I wouldn't, because I was I was I was born too late. Speaking of speaking of signals, my cousins, they read these petroglyphs, and they asked us to come out to Pennsylvania. They have a riding, and so we went out there, and it's all places. There was only about a 3 foot, and it was quite a ways underneath this rock ledge. So they suited me up, my cousin, and we went back, and on our back, all the way to probably about 30 feet underneath, it was dark. So we had our lantern on and our flashlights. And this guy said, "It's right here." So we crawled on our backs over to it and we looked at it. And I told him, "Get on state, man." I said, "What do you think?" He looked at it and it was damp underneath. He took that water and he went like this. He said, "Kundana, Kunduma," he said. And I looked like that guy had his recorder and his camera going, what's it say? What's it say? Reminding there was 15 people out there wanting to know. And so I looked at, this guy says, "Eat at Joe's." Some young kids that took the liberty of crawling in and marking them because they got water washed off.
Well, eat at Joe's. Now I'm hungry.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Alvin? Are we should we call it a day? Or
Sure. But there's a lot more actually.
I know there is. There's a hell of a lot more. And I know we can go on all day.
I leave you with this.
Okay.
I've born in 51. I've seen a lot of changes, both good and some not so good, with the human, with the area, not only here, but other areas. And now all our elders that we looked up to, they're all gone. And then when we come this way, the hope that we have, that we all have to enjoin with each other, to be a partner with each other, like you and what you do, like all these others, NCAI, NIGON, all these others. We have to come up with a plan. There's this plan that we've been operating off of. It's probably about 20, 30 years old. And we need to come to the table with new thoughts, new initiatives. And now is the right time to do that. The right time to create that positive change once and for all for Indian country. And we can't let it slip through our fingers. because we may not get another chance. We know, as Native people to this land, that there's always going to be racism. According to my old folks, it's always going to be here. We can't change another human's way on how they look at us. But being mindful that the change that you make as an individual should benefit your children, grandchildren, in my case, great-grandchildren. That's what I look forward to, is the positive change that's at hand. That now that hole in that tunnel, there's light there. We cannot let that slip through our hands. We cannot run tribal government like another government-funded program. We, as I always say, have to look outside the teepee. And sometimes that teepee is far away. But we have to make sure that as we embark on change in the future, that we're also looking back at the people that we represent, and that hopefully there's going to be a voice that's going to hear us as Native people to this land, because some of us still hold that to our heart, the belief that we have. I have never been to a Christian school, a Christian church, but my old folks say it's not for everybody. When you think 500 years ago, 600 years ago, what did our people believe in? They believed in them 4 laws, and it all reverted to Creator. That's the ultimate law that we should have. Long before law and order codes, public policies, we always had that. It was us that forgot those intricacies of each of those 4 laws. Because once we understand those laws, that gives us the ability as a human to give each other a check and balance. The jealousy that prevails. This old guy told me, he said, Alvin, he said, I'm going to use you as an example. I said, oh, okay. You know what you do? When people look at you, they envy. They envy you, what you do. Second, that envy leads into jealousy for what you're doing. And I'm only using you as an example. May not be true. And the third part of that, after jealousy, is hate. In that order. Then the fourth one that happens is revenge in some fashion, whether it's bad talk or bad talk on this. Because in this modern society, this is what also is going to judge us as humans, according to my old folks. And that was long before self-service ever was about to them. So that's kind of where I leave you. And I certainly am young enough to keep going on. And it's tough. I shouldn't say it's tough. It's very admirable for a guy like me to have a role model in that pink Energizer rabbit.
Oh, there are so many jokes wrapped up in what you just said right there.
So after saying all that, I certainly appreciate expressing myself as no one's listening to me, and at least if you're the one listening, I got that off my chest.
Yes, we are listening. We are listening, Alvin, and thank you so much, and thank you for spending some time with us. Really appreciate it, and hope you continue your success at iResponse, because it sounds like what iResponse is, it's not only doing good work with tribes and protecting cultural heritage, but you're also using it to give back. You're using it to help there at Rocky Boy. So really grateful for all you do, Alvin.
Yeah. As a Sioux would say, washte. As a Blackfoot would say, sukape. As a Cree would say, I'm hungry.
No wonder I like you so much, Alvin. All right. Well,
Okay.
we'll say good night. We'll let you on with your evening, and I'm going to take you down, and then I'll close out the show. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon, Alvin.
Okay, thank you.
And another show has passed. I think tonight is our 50th show, and we're grateful that you joined us here on Red Hoop Talk. I wanted to share an announcement with you, if I can bring it up. Here it is. We're having a call to all Indigenous artists. We're having a little bit of a competition. We're looking for an original digital logo that will help represent the Association on American Indian Affairs annual Repatriation Conference. So, we have an annual Repatriation Conference every year. This year it's going to be in November, and this year it will still be all virtual. We're looking for a graphic artist to develop a logo for us so that we can use every year for our Repatriation Conference. The grand prize is $1,000, and we're going to use your artwork. And we'll be recognizing the artist on all our social media and website for the art. We have submissions. Let me pull up the website address here. If you're interested, go to our website to the Repatriation Conference button, or you can, I'm putting it in the chat right there, indian-affairs.org repatriation_conference, and check it out. Next week, we are going to have a different time for our show. So we're playing with different times and different segments of the day to see how well they're watched as we're building our viewership. Next week will be Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to have a guest, that Native Thomas. If you don't know that Native Thomas, you're sure the hell going to get to know him next Saturday. He's a funny man and extremely creative as a filmmaker and author and screenwriter. That's next week. What else is happening? I think it's something called Easter on Sunday. That's when the Easter Bunny rises from the dead. Oh, no, that's not it. But anyway, happy to be here. Happy to be enjoying this time with you. Sorry, I'm not a good comedian. Maybe one day I'll get me a good co-host who can tell some good jokes. Anyway, thank you all. Don't forget to go to our YouTube channel and like, comment, and subscribe, and let your friends know where we are here on Red Hoop Talk. Good night, everybody. And now I've got to find the button to end the broadcast. Where is it? There it is.